You are kneeling. Stone presses into your shins. Your wrists are bound behind you. The rope has worn the skin raw, but you stopped feeling it hours ago. There is a sound, low, constant, like the sea. But it is not the sea. It is people. Thousands of them. You do not look up, not yet. The air smells of smoke, of livestock, of rain on old wood. A voice reads charges you do not recognize. Treason, they call it. Treason against a king you never swore loyalty to. Your mouth is dry. Your heart is steady. You have known for some time that this is where it ends. You are William Wallace, and London has come to watch you die. By August 1305, the Scottish Wars of Independence had ground on for nearly a decade. What began as a crisis of succession after the death of King Alexander III had become a brutal contest of sovereignty between Scotland and the English crown under Edward I, a monarch history would remember as the Hammer of the Scots. William Wallace was not a king. He was not a lord of great standing. He was a minor landholder's son from Renfrewshire who, in 1297, emerged as one of the most effective military leaders Scotland had produced. His victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge stunned the English establishment and briefly turned the tide of the war. But by 1298, Wallace had been defeated at Falkirk. He resigned his guardianship of Scotland and spent the following years in the margins, possibly traveling to France and Rome to seek diplomatic support, possibly continuing guerrilla resistance. The historical record grows thin. What is clear is that Wallace never submitted. Unlike many Scottish nobles who eventually swore fealty to Edward, Wallace refused to bend. That refusal made him dangerous, and when he was finally captured near Glasgow on the 5th of August 1305, likely betrayed by a fellow Scot, Edward intended to make an example of him so thorough, so public, that the very idea of Scottish resistance would die alongside him. It would not work out that way. You are taken at night. There are armed men, English soldiers and a Scottish knight named John de Menteith, a man whose name your countrymen will curse for centuries. You are outnumbered. There is no battle. There is only surrender. They bind your hands, they place you on a horse, and then the long ride south begins. Days pass. The landscape changes beneath you, Scottish moorland giving way to English farmland, then to the outskirts of towns where people gather at the roadside to stare. Some shout, some throw things, most simply watch. You are a curiosity now, a captured animal being paraded toward the capital. By the time you reach London, you have not slept properly in days. Your muscles ache from the saddle. The chains on your wrists have become a second skin, heavy, constant, the sound of them marking every step. You learn to stop noticing. They take you to Westminster Hall on the 23rd of August. The hall is enormous. It is filled with English nobles, clergymen, officials. You are placed on a bench at the south end. They put a crown of laurel leaves on your head, a mockery, a joke at your expense. The man who supposedly wanted to be king, now crowned in weeds. The charges are read: treason, murder, robbery, sedition, sacrilege. You are not permitted to speak in your own defense. This is not a trial. It is a sentence dressed in legal clothing. You are said to have objected to only one charge: treason. You cannot betray a king to whom you never owed allegiance. The court is unmoved. The verdict is predetermined. You are condemned to die the following morning by hanging and quartering, the most severe punishment in English law, reserved for the worst offenders against the crown. The night before is yours alone. A cell, stone walls, the sound of your own breathing. Whatever you think about in those hours, history does not record. The date is the 23rd of August, 1305. The location is Smithfield, just outside the city walls of London, a place commonly used for livestock markets and public executions. The crowd is large and has been gathering since early morning. You are stripped and dragged through the streets behind a horse. This is the first stage. It is designed to exhaust and humiliate. The cobblestones tear at your body. The crowd presses close. The noise is constant, jeering, chanting, the sound of hooves on stone. By the time you reach the scaffold, your body is already in distress. Adrenaline is flooding your system. Your heart rate is elevated. Your muscles are rigid. The body's pain response is beginning to compete with shock. You are hanged first, but not to death. The rope tightens. Your airway constricts. The world narrows to a single point of pressure at your throat. Your vision darkens at the edges. Your lungs burn. Then they cut you down. This is deliberate. The method is designed to bring the condemned to the edge of death repeatedly, prolonging the process. From a physiological standpoint, your body is now in crisis. Blood pressure drops. Oxygen deprivation has begun to affect cognition. The world becomes distant, muffled, unreal. What follows is the drawing, the opening of the abdomen. We will not describe this in detail. What matters historically is that it was performed while the condemned was still conscious, and that it was carried out before the crowd as a deliberate act of royal authority. The pain at this stage is beyond what the human nervous system can coherently process. Medical historians suggest that the body enters a state of profound shock. Awareness becomes fragmentary. Sensory input arrives in disconnected bursts. Sound without meaning, light without shape. The crowd watches. Some cheer, some look away. Many have brought their children. This is, by design, a public lesson, a performance of power. The message is not subtle. This is what happens to those who defy the English crown. Throughout the process, the executioners work with practiced efficiency. This is their profession. There is no hesitation. There is a procedure, and they follow it. Your body is failing, but accounts suggest, and this is where history and legend blur, that Wallace remained conscious longer than expected, that he did not cry out for mercy, that his endurance unsettled even those who had come to celebrate. Whether this is fact or myth shaped by later generations is impossible to say with certainty. But the story endured, and in medieval Scotland, the story was what mattered. The noise fades, not because the crowd has gone quiet, but because your mind has begun to withdraw. The body protects itself this way, closing doors, dimming lights, pulling inward towards some final, unreachable center. You are still here, but only just. There is sky above you, gray, English sky. It looks the same as the sky over Lanark, over Stirling, over the highlands you will never see again. Your breathing slows. The world becomes very small. And then, between one heartbeat and the absence of the next, it is over. You are beheaded. Your body is divided into 4 parts. Your head is dipped in tar and placed on a spike on London Bridge, facing south, toward the country you fought for. Your limbs are sent to Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling, and Perth, displayed at the highest points, visible for miles. Edward wants Scotland to see what remains of William Wallace. Scotland sees, and Scotland remembers. Edward I believed that Wallace's execution would serve as the final punctuation mark on Scottish resistance. It was meant to terrify, to silence, to close the door permanently on the question of Scottish sovereignty. Instead, it opened one. Within 2 years of Wallace's death, Robert the Bruce, a nobleman who had previously sworn loyalty to Edward, launched a renewed campaign for Scottish independence. By 1314, Bruce's forces achieved a decisive victory at Bannockburn, effectively ending English military dominance in Scotland. In 1320, the Declaration of Arbroath formally asserted Scotland's right to self-governance in a letter to the Pope, and in 1328, the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton recognized Scotland as an independent kingdom. Wallace did not live to see any of this, but his execution became the catalyst that made it possible. The brutality of his death did not destroy the independence movement, it radicalized it. Wallace became a martyr, not because later generations invented a myth, but because Edward's spectacle of power was so excessive that it generated the very defiance it was designed to crush. Every spike-mounted limb was a reminder, not of English strength, but of what English rule actually looked like. Over the centuries, Wallace's story was reshaped by Blind Harry's 15th century epic poem, by the Romantic movement, and eventually by Hollywood. Much of what the public now knows about Wallace comes from the 1995 film Braveheart, which is, to put it charitably, historically liberal. Wallace almost certainly never wore blue face paint. He almost certainly never met the French princess the film pairs him with. And he almost certainly never shouted freedom from the scaffold. But the core truth remains. A man of no great title stood against an empire, refused to submit, and was destroyed for it. And the empire's attempt to erase him from history achieved the opposite. His name survived. The cause survived. Scotland survived. 700 years later, William Wallace's face is carved in stone above the entrance to Edinburgh Castle, not as a king, not as a saint, as something Edward I never anticipated, a permanent symbol of resistance that outlasted the crown that killed him. Some executions end a story. This one started one.